You're listening to the Health Courage Collective podcast, episode 61, Choose Not to Have Injuries and Pain. Welcome to the Health Courage Collective podcast, the show for women who are too busy to slog through hours of generalized, inapplicable, and often contradictory health information, but too smart to ignore that a few minutes of focused attention now can prevent years of suffering in the future. I'm your host, Christina Hackett, a pharmacist who doesn't want you to live on prescriptions, a certified coach specifically trained to maximize your potential, and a compulsive learner obsessed with preventative, cutting-edge, holistic, and integrative medicine. I'm on a mission to increase your physical and mental resilience so you can fearlessly look forward to your next 40-plus limitless years. Your time is now. Let's go. Hey, welcome to another episode. I'm so glad you're here with me today. Have you had any bad days? Gifts this past week? Does it help you to remember that you don't need 7 good days in order to have a good week? Sometimes just remembering what we did accomplish in a day or a week is helpful. I do a little weekly preview before the start of every week, and part of that is to review my wins from the previous week. This week I felt like, last week was just a bad week productivity-wise. I felt like I didn't get anything done. I kind of wasted my week. But then I did the exercise of writing down my wins, and I was so surprised. Okay, I finally ordered all the baseboards and door window trim for my house. I picked the paint colors. I signed up for my first Spartan race. I went to my first rock opera. I didn't even know that was a thing. And I got a lot of ideas while attending a 3-day conference. Okay, so not a total waste, I guess. So even when you think things aren't going as well as you had hoped, don't forget to look back and realize what has gone well. Today, we're going to talk about something that's so important for your personal plan to be powerful for many decades to come. Part of this life is the occurrence of accidents and injuries. We never know what might happen. We might step on a pine cone and roll our ankle. We might cut our hand while pitting an avocado. We might fall down and drop a 165-pound barbell on our arm. Been there. We might be one of those people who's texting on their phone and accidentally falls down an open manhole. Did you see about the lady who got crushed to death by a Taco Bell sign? Awful. But did you know that a lot of accidents, especially orthopedic type injuries, are preventable? Like, way more than you think. A ton of things that we either think are just bad luck or even evidence that CrossFit is inherently dangerous or that distance running always eventually leads to injuries are actually preventable. For real. You might not have to forever have a bum knee or a delicate shoulder. Whether you end up getting a knee or hip replacement is not like getting your number drawn out of one of those big bingo cage things. Of course, a lot of things do happen just by chance, and I'm not blaming anyone who has been through the excruciating pain and demanding recovery of any kind of injury or joint replacement. But we definitely have a lot more control over our orthopedic longevity than we're led to believe. I'm a pill girl. That sounds weird, but you know what I mean. And so it's obvious to me that there are so many options for changing course before we have to end up on a medication to manage a chronic condition. And it's annoying/infuriating to me that more people aren't told about those options, even when it's obviously on the horizon. We as a medical community just wait for things to get worse until they're, quote, bad enough to warrant taking the pill. It's ridiculous. But the same thing happens with orthopedic stuff, maybe even more so. There are limited cases where the doctor will tell you that if you eat less salt, you might not have to start taking blood pressure medication. That's rarely the answer, by the way, but at least it's something. But the physical, mechanical, orthopedic stuff, almost never. It's the craziest thing that leads to a lot of surgeries and worse, a lot of unnecessary pain. And maybe, this is coming from a girl that's been lucky enough to have a pretty pain-free life so far, maybe worse is the amount of limitation on motion caused by all of this. Back in episodes 28 and 57, we talked about how movement nourishes every cell of our bodies. How as a society, we're experiencing a collective atrophy of movement from our society, and how that is starting to trap us in a box where we can no longer move through our entire range of motion anymore. and how we start to suffer the negative health effects that happen to astronauts in space when we don't move often enough. We know that the more we move, the more we're capable of moving. Move it or lose it, remember? Motion starvation is a problem that most people don't know that they have. But back on topic. As we get older, we get better at accepting some pain that's intolerable to younger people. I think it's actually a good thing and comes with some wisdom. But a lot of the injuries and pain that we consider inevitable in old age is not. And the answer isn't more supportive knee wraps, more ergonomic keyboards, higher arch supports in our shoes, or chairs with taller back supports. Really. In his book, Pain Free, anatomical physiologist Pete Egoscue says, quote, "Pain is not a reflection of the body's inferior design, nor are pain and dysfunction the price we must pay for growing older, being women, jogging, swinging a golf club, or holding certain jobs. On the contrary, the body is responding in strict accordance with the logic of its own musculoskeletal heritage. What's illogical is that we ignore the body's design as we go about our daily lives and submit to medical treatment. Our musculoskeletal system would work just fine if only we would let it." End quote. Pete Egoscue has a whole treatment system, I guess you'd call it. I did 3 sessions with a virtual Egoscue therapist in Las Vegas about 2 years ago or so. Maybe a little more than that, actually. So I got a little firsthand experience with an Egoscue clinician. The whole Egoscue program and philosophy are based on his premise that everyone's body requires the proper alignment of our 8 load-bearing joints: the shoulders, hips, knees, and ankles. Dysfunction starts to creep in when there are non-parallel lines between those joints. Deviation from the standard design of the body is the source of pain and incapacitation. Most people have non-parallel lines, much more so now than 50 or 100 years ago. I do. The abnormal has become the new normal. Pete Egoscue believes that most chronic orthopedic conditions and injuries can be prevented. Hip replacements, knee replacements, arthritis, back pain, bad backs, carpal tunnel syndrome, bunions, sciatica, TMJ, bursitis, frozen shoulders, tendinitis. The list goes on and on. Not only that, but most injuries can be prevented. Not death by Taco Bell sign, obviously, but rotator cuff tears, ACL tears, tendinitis, bursitis, back pain, neck strain, and on and on. Pete Egoscue says, quote, "Tendinitis is not a diagnosis as much as a vague observation that you have swelling and pain. It's not a disease that you catch like TB or the flu. It's not something you're generally predisposed to or comes about by accident. It's a symptom of musculoskeletal misalignment." And carpal tunnel syndrome is not caused by what we do with our elbows, wrists, or hands. It's caused by what we don't do. They do not have access to the nuanced muscle power and biomechanical interaction required to stay healthy. There is no substitute for those functions. None. And, one of my favorites, that's why the ergonomic redesign of the workplace and of garden tools, toys, and mattresses borders on fraud. Installing a wrist brace on a keyboard or raising the surface of a workbench only shifts the excess friction to another location of the worker's elbow, wrist, or hand. Ergonomic palliatives are just as deadly as overdosing on painkillers. End quote. Okay, I like him and I think his work is life-changing, but I think that last bit's a little heavy-handed. You're saying my purple mouse pad with the little gel bump to rest my wrist on is equivalent to melting OxyContin in a spoon and shooting it up? Should we start a campaign to remove ergonomic chairs from offices? And heaven forbid, don't let your child go to a friend's house to play if they have a wrist rest on their keyboard. You don't want them to be exposed. The new slogan can be, "Heroin, ergonomic furniture, pills, it all kills." Okay, it's a little silly, but his point is that daily tasks are being unfairly blamed for causing injuries that are actually a result of musculoskeletal misalignment and motion malnourishment. The good news in all of this is that understanding the basic root cause level issue gives us so much power over our musculoskeletal future. And almost no one is telling us about it. It's like there's a whole industry making millions or billions of dollars on braces and insoles and wraps and rubs and tools and treatments and pain medications and uber high-ticket surgeries. Oh, wait. So, what can we do to be abnormal and decide not to be one of the 35 million Americans with chronic musculoskeletal pain? To not have our nutritive motion restricted as we wait till we're, quote, bad enough to qualify for orthopedic surgery.
Hey, I just wanted to quickly interrupt and say good for you for being here listening to a podcast about improving your biological age relative to your chronological age. Have you ever thought about slowing the biological aging of your skin? If you heard my episode 55 about senescent cells, then you know that the accumulation of these undead cells accelerates all of the problems of aging. Well, now there's a topical supplement you can put on your skin that reduces the accumulation of senescent cells in your skin. This reduces wrinkles, but also all other skin conditions caused by thinner, weaker, drier skin. It also reduces the formation of age spots and increases collagen and hyaluronic acid production within your skin. It's a peptide called OS01, and it's in a product called OneSkin. I use it every day on my face and neck, and I've noticed a big difference. I would say my skin is more moisturized, but that's not a good enough description because it's not like when you put moisturizer on, but your skin is still dry underneath. It's the exact opposite. The topical supplement isn't greasy at all, but my skin is plumper and healthier from the inside out. I'm a big fan. If OneSkin sounds like something you'd like to try, there's a link in the show notes to get you $20 off. All right, back to the episode. Here are 4 takeaways that I've come up with that I think will help you drastically reduce your chance of future injury and chronic pain, both now and in the future. Number 1. Recognize that the site of the pain is very likely not the source of the problem. Hard to believe that an excruciating knee, especially one that shows clear diagnostic criteria upon imaging, is not the problem. I mean, yes, it's a problem. I want you to feel great, but it's not the source of the problem. It's a symptom of something bigger. Developing the skill of seeing the forest, not just the trees. Is that a thing? Do you know what I'm talking about? The opposite of not seeing the forest? You get it, right? Of course, do what you need to take care of yourself, but also consider that this might just be a symptom of a broader issue. Same with high blood sugar or migraines or skin rashes or insomnia. Even when very smart medical people tell you that you definitively meet criteria for the diagnosis of a certain condition, it doesn't necessarily make you a certain kind of person or mean that that's the cause of the problem, because it's probably not. This is a great quote from Peter Goskew. It's too bad that we give fancy names to symptoms that are related to the site of the pain instead of the source. In order to get well and stay that way, we must learn to be skeptical of any chronic pain treatment that narrowly focuses on the joint or area that is hurting. End quote. Amen. Yes, we have a cultural obsession with imaging the site of the pain and often finding visible damage, but that doesn't mean that it's the source of the problem. And if you have been injured, just fixing the damage or getting the inflammation at the site to go down isn't enough. Knees are frequently injured, but not because they're inherently vulnerable or our activities are inherently dangerous. When we develop the skill of thinking bigger, we have better long-term plans for staying injury and pain-free for a long time. Number 2, pain is your friend, maybe your frenemy. Do you love the sound of car alarms? I can't imagine there's anyone who would say yes to that. I've met a few people who say they like pain. Like, I used to work with this guy who would spray alcohol in his paper cuts on purpose, and he once had a girl taser his calf because he liked pain. It was so weird. I'd much rather listen to a car alarm than taser my leg, but neither of them are welcome in my life. I feel like car alarms are kind of a normal background sound in our society, and we've all gotten pretty good at attempting to tune them out. Have you ever gone running, guns blazing to catch the thief when you hear a car alarm somewhere? Good for you if you have. I don't usually even bother to look over my shoulder to see what's going on. Pain is like our body's car alarm. Heads up, something's not right here. But too often we focus on just muting or muffling the sound of the siren. You do have to do that to not go crazy, but if you don't want it to keep coming back, you need to find the source that keeps tripping the alarm system. Peter Goskew says, quote, "I've never seen arthritis develop in a joint that was previously active and properly aligned."
Never. Moderate regular exercise and musculoskeletal alignment in young people would go a long way, if not all the way, toward preventing the onset of arthritis in the first place. End quote. He talks a lot about how what we call arthritis is sometimes something else, like muscular pain. But even the joint pain that we call arthritis is usually caused by musculoskeletal misalignment, and it can be lessened by improving our mechanics. This is awesome because we're all told that arthritis is degenerative and relentlessly progressive. Sorry, you have arthritis. It's just going to get worse from here. Nope. Cartilage loss is not irreversible. Pain is not inescapable. Pain is your friend because it's there to alert you to danger. Chronic pain is not telling us that we're frail or that our bodies have lost the ability to cope with the physical demands of life on Earth. It's warning us of the dangers of motion starvation or non-parallel lines between our load-bearing joints. When we get sluggish, stiff, or start to hurt, it's time to listen to our body and focus on giving it what it needs. Properly aligned motion. This brings us to number 3. We need more properly aligned motion. Pete calls this design motion. We know that our current environment no longer gives us enough motion to keep us healthy. If you remember from our previous episodes, we want to keep moving through our full ranges of motion, and movement doesn't have to mean exercise. We need to keep our body's design requirements in mind as we move, otherwise our body starts to improvise and have ancillary muscles start doing the job that our major muscles should be doing. And then the force of muscles pulling on our bones starts to come from the wrong places, and our car alarm starts going off. Annoying. While more movement is good for every cell in our body, it can't just be any movement. Grinding workouts might actually be making things worse because you're strengthening your dysfunctions. But so too would stopping all motion. Even preventative braces are probably not good because they're not fixing the structural alignment problem. Our musculoskeletal system is important for posture and locomotion, but also respiratory, circulatory, and metabolic roles to give it what it needs. According to Pete, his method is 95% effective at reversing musculoskeletal pain. You can take that for what it's worth since he's the one saying it, but the way he has such good success is by treating people with design motion, which restores health. Our motion isn't limited as we age because we're older, but because we started restricting our motion, probably without realizing it. At some point, adults stop getting down on the floor or jumping off of stuff. We don't hang from things or climb up things. Pete says that the way we have changed how we move our shoulders is changing the definition of what it means to be human. Yikes! We're becoming human 2.0, but not in a good way. The answer is 20 minutes a day of design motion. We'll come back to that in a second. The fourth takeaway is to recognize that your body is inherently able to heal itself. It's designed to work properly and be pain-free. We just have to give it the chance. I know, easy for me to say, I'm not in constant pain. I literally don't know what that feels like. I don't want to be insensitive to people who are, but there is hope, and I want you to know that your body is your ally, not your opponent. Like that old Chinese proverb that the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago and the second best time is today. The best time to treat your injury or chronic pain is before it starts. It takes a pretty incredible person to foresee the benefit before the car alarm starts going off. So it's a good thing that you're an incredible person, right? This is an investment with a huge return, and most people don't tell you that you can just decide to reduce your chances of injury or pain by developing a fully functional musculoskeletal system. It's not what most people choose to do because it's not easy, but it's really not that hard either. And honestly, it's the easy way out. Pete says, we can solve many of these, quote, permanent problems by refusing to accept the view that age, accident, or disease routinely triumph over the human body's natural legacy to be pain-free, end quote. So let's say I've sold you on taking the easy way out and deciding now to prevent injury and pain before it happens or gets unbearable. Now what? Obviously, I talk about Pete a ton. He's the first one I heard about this deliberate musculoskeletal design from. I think he's kind of the OG. You can meet with an Egoscue therapist in person or online, and they'll take pictures of you and show you whether your shoulders or hips are uneven, whether your feet are everted or inverted, and whether your shoulders stoop forward. I think it's super helpful. Then they'll give you a menu of exercises just for you, and together you can watch as your pictures improve. I told you that I did that a while back, and I kept thinking I should schedule another Zoom appointment. Then I heard from Tony Robbins, who does his own Egoscue exercises every morning, that you can find all of his exercises in Pete Egoscue's book, Pain Free. And I was like, what? I didn't even know there was a book. So I immediately got it, and I have been doing the exercises faithfully every single day. Go me. I haven't missed a day in the last 6 weeks. Egoscue calls his exercises the unworkout that works, and that's kind of what it is. It's stuff that's really easy to do, but you need to do it correctly. One exercise is lying on the floor with your legs up in a chair. That's my favorite one. One of them is downward dog. It's nothing strange or complicated. The unworkout is designed to be a muscle and joint tutorial to teach your body to experience how proper alignment and motion feels. It's designed to target the muscles and functions that are most likely to not be receiving proper design motion. So an Egoscue practitioner or the book Pain Free are great choices. There's also a guy named Doug Bertrand who started a company called Structural Elements. He's pretty new to me, but his promise is really similar. He aims to correct your alignment and posture and improve your range of motion, but he talks a lot about fascia and adhesions and connecting to your parasympathetic nervous system. You can see him in a clinic, but he has an $11 per month subscription of things you can do yourself at home. So, since I love you, I thought I'll take one for the team and shell out the $11 and give it a try and let you know what I think. The subscription has 8 categories: fundamentals, corrective exercises, soft tissue maintenance, pain management, somatics, food, personal awareness, and health and beauty. There's actually quite a bit of content in what he calls it the SE Lab. SE stands for Structural Elements. So there's like the fundamentals, and then there's the corrective exercises. There are tons of them. Upper extremity, lower extremity, spine, core. I'm just looking through it right now. I've done some of these. They're pretty different than the Egoscue things. The Egoscue things anybody could do anywhere. These ones, like some of my shoulders roll forward, like the bad posture people, so that's something I'm working on. So that's one of the things I looked up in his corrective exercises. And you need like a resistance band on a track, which I have at home, but I think most people don't. And then also some other resistant band things. So they're more like typical exercises, and maybe that's a good thing. So I've done a few of those. He also has like tutorials on using your massage gun, which is kind of helpful. They weren't super life-changing, but I watched those and I did my massage gun, and so that was kind of helpful. And then he also has some pain management things, and I haven't had time to look through those yet, but there's upper extremity, lower extremity, and back pain. And then he has a lot of other videos and PDFs. There's even 4 Pilates workout videos in here. So that's kind of cool. There's 30-minute pre-Pilates basics, 20-minute Pilates basics, Pilates for healthy shoulders, and Pilates to help with head forward posture, which most people have head forward posture, especially these days, all of us scrolling on our phones. So for $11, I think it's worth checking out. I don't know if he ever adds new stuff to it, if it would be worth continuing to pay $11 every month, but there are some helpful videos in there. Other things to consider are just how you move around. How's your posture? I know mine's not great. It's something I think I need to improve all the time. I'd love to hear it if you've ever tried one of those posture reminder things that can be either like a backward necklace or you stick them on your back. I've talked to one person who had one and he liked it. We've talked about moving through all of your ranges of motion before. Do you reach upward and backward and side to side? Also, what about your shoes? We really are designed to walk on our bare feet. I've never been into barefoot shoes before, but I had heard of a few kinds like Vivo Barefoot, and I thought, maybe one day I should try some. Then one day I listened to the owner of Zero, that's spelled with an X, Zero shoes, so I decided to try a pair. Mostly because he calls all other brands of shoes that aren't his foot coffins. I was instantly in love and I bought 4 more pairs. I have a lifelong cute shoe problem. It escalated when I had babies and suddenly I had 8 feet I was responsible for. But to be fair, only 3 of those new 4 pairs were for me. Anyway, it's really hard for me to find shoes that aren't unbearably painful, and Zero shoes are awesome, at least for my feet. I know everyone's not the same. The point is that our shoes and our chairs and the way our desks are set up, and certainly the constant phone scrolling we do, all contribute to our body alignment. Having proper body alignment eliminates pain and reduces your chance of injury, and it allows you to safely get strong in the right places and feel good doing it. I don't know a lot about chiropractic, but I know these principles kind of overlap with that a little bit. Proper body alignment is important. But I was talking to my husband the other day, who's a physical therapist, and I was asking him some questions about this, and he was saying, yes, it's important, especially if something is way off, like your head is way forward or your shoulders are way stooped forward. So it is important to correct those things, and using the grid like the Egoscue people do, where they show if one shoulder is higher or lower than the other, is helpful to a certain point. But consider the fact that our bodies aren't perfectly symmetrical. At a high level, they're symmetrical and they should move symmetrically. But when you start getting really nitpicky about it, you can run into problems, the main one being that you might be paying to fix something that's not even a problem. You should fix gross structural abnormalities, but you don't need to get super intricate about it. Because he was saying, like one bone on one side might be a millimeter longer than the bone on the other side, or all your little carpal bones in your wrists, or the ones in tarsals in your feet? All those little square guys, those might not be exactly the same side to side. They'll be really close, but not exactly the same. It kind of reminded me of one time I had an esthetician shape my eyebrows for me because I thought she would do a better job than I did. And I kind of didn't think she did. But anyway, she was telling me most people think they want their eyebrows to be exactly the same. Like we're told that beauty is having a symmetrical face. But actually, you look weird if your eyebrows are exactly the same. You don't want them to be like identical twins. You just want them to be like sisters. So I thought, okay, that kind of applies with, your arms and your legs. They're like sisters rather than identical twins. So like my husband was saying, trying to force your body to fit into this exact grid and be perfectly in alignment might actually not be the right thing for you, because your body's not going to be identical on the right and the left sides. And maybe the way you compensate for that is okay on a small level, but it shouldn't be grossly misaligned. I think most people are grossly misaligned, so doing a lot to correct that is going to be super helpful, but there comes a point where you don't have to keep working and paying more and more money to get it into this perfect grid, like to the millimeter. That's a little bit of overkill, so just keep that in mind. Do you remember your 6th vital sign? I want you to rock yours, because if you've got strong muscles moving strong bones in proper alignment, watch out, world. You are a force to be reckoned with. So, quick recap. Number 1, the site of the ongoing musculoskeletal pain is probably not the source of the pain. Compare what you're being sold by the medical profession with what your body really needs. Be skeptical of any long-term treatment that only focuses on one area that is hurting. Number 2, pain is your frenemy. Learn the lesson it's trying to teach you as quickly as possible. 3, use the concept of design motion to teach your body what it feels like to be in proper alignment. Take regular breaks from your patterned motion. Give your body the freedom to move properly, and you'll change your future. And number 4, your body knows how to heal and be pain-free. We just need to figure out what we need to strip away or unlearn to let it get back to feeling good. Thank you so much for being here today. I know that not all pain is this simple to solve, and hurting is certainly never your fault or a sign that you're doing things wrong. But I do think that it's important to know that you can plan and prepare to have fewer injuries and less pain. Next week, we're going to talk about playing not to lose. Until then, do some design motion and don't be normal.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Health Courage Collective podcast. I am truly honored that you have paid me the enormous compliment of your time and attention. I would be so grateful if you would share this podcast with someone you know and subscribe so you never miss an episode. This podcast is for entertainment and information purposes only. Statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Christina Hackett and producers, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse events by use of information contained herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.